Welcome to RecalibrAgency. Today I have Megan Conley, the CEO and founder of Social Tribe, with us today. And we're going to talk about company culture and how that impacts agencies. Tell us a little bit about your agency, Megan. Where did you guys start? Where have you guys come from? And where's Social Tribe headed in the future?
So Social Tribe started in about 2009, kind of back at the dawn of social media. We have always been a remote virtual agency, which I think means a lot more now than it did, 10 or 15 years ago, as we are all kind of converting to a remote world. We specialize in working predominantly with B2B technology companies, and we really got our foothold in the social media space, right when things were kicking off. So we're, a social digital agency first. And since that time, we've really grown and kind of expanded into, bringing in other service arms like content and influencer and paid, so that we could really help kind of build and execute strategic social digital programs for our clients.
And I know you told me before, but tell our audience a little bit about switching from the contractor model that you started with to an employee-based model. What was that like? What were some of the challenges that you had to overcome? And why did you even make that change in the first place?
Yeah, totally. I'm happy to. So I've been running Social Tribe for in the neighborhood of 13, 14 years now. So over the course of that time, the agency has gone through many, many transformations. It's almost like every year when I look back at what we had set out to accomplish the year before, and I look at, at the beginning of the year and I look at where the business is and what the business is, it almost feels like every year it sort of like kind of becomes a different business. Just because so many changes happen at an agency and they happen so quickly, and there's so many of them, between personnel, team building, clients coming and going, projects, all of these different things. So, for a long time, we operated on a contractor model. And there are definitely advantages of that, especially as you're kind of building your agency. You don't quite have maybe as much continuity or consistency in your pipeline. Working with contractors obviously is a much more flexible solution, and you can kind of cherry pick people based on expertise and skill. And I think it can work really well. But what I found is that once your agency hits about 10 people, that contractor model becomes more. It doesn't work as well. Because at a certain point, you need more continuity and consistency than you need flexibility to grow your business. And so when I got to that stage, it was a realization of, okay, in order for us to really be able to grow our clients and be able to grow our team, we need to have core people that understand our business, really, are invested in our clients and things like that, in order to be able to kind of deliver the experience and the quality of work that our clients were looking for us, time after time. So we did make that switch. It was kind of challenging, I mean, we definitely worked through trying to convert our contractors into employees, those that wanted to stay. I think, for folks that are working with contractors, you also know that there's a lot of unpredictability. Contractors, for example, in our instance, there were several people that didn't want to commit to coming on board full time. And then we had to make decisions about, whether we were going to continue working with them or not, because the business needed to go in this direction, and we had to make changes based on that.
Yeah, sounds like that was kind of your foray into navigating tribal knowledge loss and transferring client information over to different account managers and implementers. And what was that like? How do you mitigate some of those challenges in such a fast-paced agency environment, especially in the world of social media?
Yes. I think that is such a um, such a good question. And honestly, one that I think a lot of times as agencies and as agency owners, we don't think about as much. We're so focused on getting the work out and, it's got to da 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 that you're just like, hey, I'll deal with this later. Agency life and agency environment can be very, very reactive. And I think there's also a lot of kind of stereotypes that promote that, this idea that, this is how agencies go. They're just, kind of Mad Men era. You're staying up until midnight and then magic happens and the client loves it. And that's really not been my experience at all. I think really a successful agency, your goal is to get things operating like a well-oiled machine. Real success is about being able to create repeatable results and understanding that having access to information, having that knowledge so that your teams are really able to deliver the quality, the caliber, really understand the clients that they're working with, giving them the access and the right tools and the right information is pretty critical to helping them be successful at their job. So all of that said, we have not done it perfectly and we're still trying to crack that code. I think this is also something that happens when agencies go through different growth stages or at different levels. When you're much smaller, you don't need as quite of a tight controlled process. But as you get larger, it becomes it's impossible, I would say, to scale without having a really clear process and system that your teams are following. And so what we do is we have things kind of across Google Docs and Dropbox and Asana, our project management tool. But I will say that one of the best things that we have done to help kind of address like how to help solve this is actually have somebody who has really great project management skills come in and have them help to build the process and the system so that that knowledge transfer can happen. Because a lot of times it's not that people aren't willing to learn or aren't interested. I find most of the times the barrier is that they just can't get the information because stuff is all over the place. And if you create like a system and a structure, you can really help to kind of make that knowledge transfer possible and seamless.
Absolutely. There's a lot of friction in this transition period where there's this question of who should be owning that organization and the structuring of the information. Should it be the owner? Should it be the implementers, the real boots on the ground? Should it be the client managers? Should it be everyone working as a team with one person that's kind of like the overseer of everything? What did you find worked well or didn't work well?
Well, I'll just start by saying a lot of it is going to depend on where you are and how much money you have to spend. For 10 years, as an agency owner, all of my resourcing was going to, bringing in teams that were doing the billable work. And so, it's not until you get to a certain size or a certain kind of level that you can afford the investment of having somebody come in and be that role. I will say that I think it's really what I have learned is the most important thing, because we did that. We had our, account leads be that function. They manage their client, deliverables, the deadlines and all those things, but it's tough. Then you're asking your account manager to be the client liaison, the person, the personality on the account. You're asking them to be the knowledgeable digital expert. And then you're also asking them to be the project manager, note taker, task reminder. That's a lot to ask. And the likelihood is you're going to get some decreased value somewhere else because you're stretching people too thin. So I think the best way to do it, if you can't bring in somebody whose real kind of dedication and passion is putting order to chaos, then I think the next best thing is to find the person that is the most project managed, like people that build processes and work with them to kind of set out a structure based on the functions and the needs of your team. So they need to work with the people on your team to understand where are they getting stuck, where are they getting the barriers, and then architect the solutions around that. And then everybody has to agree and commit to following that process, and being accountable to it.
Totally. And kind of along that thread, you need to have someone on the team that's already respected and has those lines of communication with various stakeholders in the organization in order to really understand all of the problems, not deal with weird culture issues that might arise out of that. And so it's a tough challenge to solve, because you need kind of this hexagonal kind of person that has all of these different attributes to it.
Yeah, and that's such a great point. We've recently brought somebody onto our team who comes from a project management background, she has a gift for being able to create, take really complex problems that you have different people on your team all trying to pull apart and figure out, and kind of coming in and understanding what the needs are, and then saying, okay, would this solution work for you? Would this solve this? But I think a really important thing is, a lot of times those people that have those roles, they feel really undervalued, because so often what they're doing and what their job is to, they're served with problems, or they identify problems. And that is a place where a lot of people don't want, they're uncomfortable. You bring up a problem. This is something maybe some people feel some kind of way about, that thing. And so I think that's also a really big challenge, is how do you support, those people in your organization that are bringing that structure, and how do you get the other people to respect and value what their contribution is, and how they're actually helping those account teams be successful.
You talked also about them usually feeling like they're unappreciated. Can you share some wisdom on how you try to appreciate your leaders who are in those problem-solving roles?
Well, I think first, what I try to do is really emphasize and echo out to the team how valuable this skill is, and also to really reinforce, hey, at the end of the day, if this person is bringing this up, it's not because they enjoy they're trying to bring up like suffering across the team. It's because they're here to help architect a solution. And, people need to fundamentally understand. And that's kind of why I said, I think it's really important to articulate the value. So I think the first thing I do is try to echo that often and frequently, how valuable that is, how much the organization needs that skill set, and how that really is the underpinning of success for all the other people being able to do what they want to do successfully. And really make sure that people understand that, our successes are all tied together. This is all sort of all boats rise together scenario. Yeah. So the sooner and faster they get on board with helping this person solve this problem, the sooner and faster they get to benefit from the solution and the relief to that problem.
Absolutely. And that really ties into just the overall company culture. A lot of talk these days, especially about business leaders like yourself owning the company culture. What's been your experience navigating talent retention and company culture, and balancing moving the organization forward with a good profit margin without people feeling like they're just worked to the bone? There's a lot of moving parts. So what's your perspective on this?
Yeah, this is we chatted about this a little bit when we first talked, and this definitely was like a topic that got both of us a little energized. I think it's a really hard thing. I personally started, the reason why I ended up becoming an entrepreneur is because I had, a few managers that I really struggled with. And, it kind of set me on this path of picking my own career, making my own sort of way. And so because of that, I really believe that, good leaders, good mentors, good examples, are definitely part of your role. And I know there's, every agency owner or manager or anybody who's leading a team feels that responsibility. You think about the people that work for you and with you all the time. Like I'm cleaning my kitchen and I'm thinking about so-and-so and wondering, I wonder how they feel about this, or I wonder how this landed, or, these things. But I do feel that in the more recent years, especially as we've shifted to this remote kind of work world, this focus on culture has become, I think, outsized for agency owners specifically. I can't speak about other industries because that's not my space, but it's kind of come to feel like, hey, the whole make it or break it of your business is your company culture, and that just lies solely on your shoulders. And the reality is that you don't always have control. You really don't. I mean, for me personally, in my agency, we've always been fully remote. Everybody works from home. We have flexibility. People are welcome to, you like to go to the gym in the morning. You can do that. You like to pick up your kids from school. You can do that. You like to go, to the work from a cafe or any of those things. Those are all just part of our daily culture. The end of the day, I think you have to realize that you can only do so much. You as an individual have to decide where is kind of the culture you're building and how much, you're investing in it or what it needs to be. And then accepting when you can't meet beyond that need, and just being able to accept, like, okay, maybe this is not the right place. Because I think a lot of what I have done in the past and what I see other agencies owners doing is it's almost like kind of fear, or you feel a little bit like you're held hostage. You're always walking on eggshells or trying to kind of calculate how to keep everybody happy all of the time, because, oh my gosh, if so and so leaves, it's going to mean that, my culture wasn't good, or I failed, or I didn't do enough, I didn't work hard enough, I wasn't empathetic enough, I didn't listen enough, I didn't give enough training. And I think at a certain point you just have to kind of understand that, as a business owner and as a person, you give what you can give. And then, what happens outside of that, you just have to accept as part of, the price of doing business.
Absolutely. There's so much when dealing with people, especially younger people, which make up the majority of employees at agencies, that you can't control. There's a whole different ballgame of expectations and goals that these employees have. Do you have any advice for agency owners who are struggling to manage like Gen Z employees?
Personally, I truthfully, I don't. I found, I was just thinking about this before we chatted, and I was like, I found that like Gen Z, I don't know, boomers. I mean, personally, I've had many conversations with people. Most of the conversations I've had with people that are in their 30s and their 40s are talking about how they would like more of a purpose-driven career. They want more flexibility. They want less stress in their life. They want to feel like they don't have to choose between their jobs and their personal interests and their commitments and their families. Very similar to the things that we hear from Gen Zs. I actually think that this is more of like an everybody shift, a culture shift in terms of what do we value? What do we prioritize? What do we think is most important? I will say one of the things that I realized is that, as I mentioned before, I think there's such a focus on making people feel good, and all the different ways that we can make people feel good and appreciated and valued. But I think that the truest way that people feel good about their work is when they feel that they're actually accomplishing things, when they are contributing, when they're making an impact. And so that's where I actually think that, if you can really build your culture around performance, if you can build your culture around, hey, it feels really good when we all come together and we accomplish this thing. We win that pitch. We, pull off that really cool campaign idea. We, get that client excited about, a new service or opportunity. I think that if you build your culture and everyone in your culture has this same shared goal, that focus on, your collective achievement is actually what really brings people together. The stuff about, of course, being able to take your dog or take a morning off and, take your child to the park and things like that. Those are very important, but I think that it has to be both. I think it has to be, some of the benefits, and again, not making people choose between their work and their life, but it also has to be, hey, we're all working to the same point on the horizon and we all want the same thing. And that's how we're kind of building the camaraderie and the team.
Yes. And on top of that, I mean, sometimes it feels like you have to choose between making employees happy and focusing on company culture and delivering for clients and making sure that they're getting what they need. But they really don't have to be separate. You can accomplish both in the same thread. And finding that balance, making sure that you have the right people in the right seats to do that, making sure that you're delivering services and offerings that your team is really good at, that clients really do need and see the value in. As long as you find the alignment there, you can do both at the exact same time.
Yeah, I agree with that. I will say one of the challenges that I've experienced is, in order to accomplish that, you really have to have a lot of openness and transparency and trust. And that's a really key piece about, being able to deliver that amazing client experience and to be able to accomplish like client wow and exceed that work quality. You have to be able to have an open culture where you can just say to somebody like, hey, you know what, I'm not getting what I need on this project, or, this isn't really up to snuff. It's just, this is not the quality and the caliber. And I think that's where we have so much conflict, is we're so trying to be happy and we're trying to be so nice that we're not being really honest. And when we can't be really honest, we can't really grow.
People need feedback, and managers and leaders that give good constructive feedback that's it's handled tactfully. It's not directed at, tearing down the person, but just addressing the quality of work that was given at that particular moment is really important for moving people forward in their careers too. And so I agree with you, 127%. It's super important to be open and create a trusting environment and a respectful environment too, because in different agencies, you've got different structures where you might have teams working together, or you have account managers that kind of delegate tasks out to specialists. But in either case, you have to make sure that each person on the team is working on that horizontal kind of plane, even if the responsibilities are different and the accountability maybe falls on someone if something doesn't go well. They need to respect each other across the organization.
Yeah, absolutely. And respect is really critical. But I think also, when you have trust, you can have those more candid conversations. You can have those more like honest, hey, this is what's working, this is what's not working. And that takes time,
Yeah, it definitely takes time. It is not something that you can just flip the switch on. It takes multiple team-wide conversations. It takes one-to-one conversations with you, the owner, and these employees, just to make sure that everyone's calibrated on the same setting, basically. Absolutely, Megan. Thank you. I want to thank Megan again for coming on and sharing what she's learned with her team and with her agency experiences. It's really important that a couple of things are top of mind for you that she brought up today. First of all, you really need to be mindful of publicly thanking the people on your team whose job it is, and create those systems and integrate those systems and processes into your day-to-day operations. This is really important because those are critical roles that are hard to fill with the right people. So when you have the right person in that seat, you really need to make sure that you're retaining those rock stars on your team and making it a priority to publicly thank them, build them up in front of the other team members, and make sure that they're respected among your team so that they can affect change in a positive way and in a way that's adopted by people better. The other thing is employee turnover. It's just a reality. You can't make everyone happy all of the time, and you need to not worry yourself so much that you're forgetting about other things too. You need to manage expectations of employees, manage the growth of your agency, manage the stability of your agency, and just be clear, be steadfast. The greater economy in general needs less whiny employees anyways. So setting those good expectations and boundaries and making them understand that they have a job to do, they're welcome on your team. It's a warm place to work, but they've got a job to do and they need to find ways to do what they need to do. Thank you again for coming on to RecalibrAgency today, Megan. I'm your host, Danielle Foto with Momentum Marketing, and we'll talk more soon.